But how you have rules?
Good morning to all. We'll be starting off in some time.
Second address is
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, all. We'll be starting in some time.
Good morning, all. We'll be starting off in some time. If you can requesting all others to please keep the cameras in off mode so that we can save a little bandwidth. That will help us this one. And as we speak, then we can take it forward. Just give us some more time. We are expecting some more participants to join in. Thank you all for making time on a Saturday morning for this. Just give us some time. We'll be starting off in a few minutes from now. Good morning, all. We'll be starting off in some time. We have some more participants just joining in. We see a lot of people are just joined in. Just give us a few more minutes. We'll be starting off.
Good morning, Sandeep.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. So we just start waiting for some more participants to join in, sir. We'll be starting off in a few minutes.
Sure.
Manish, are we good to start?
We'll wait for 1 minute and we'll start.
Sure. Good morning, all. Just give us few, maybe 1 or 2 minutes more. We will be taking this ahead. Thank you all for joining on a Saturday morning. Just give us maybe 1 or 2 minutes more, and we'll be starting off this webinar.
Sure, sir.
We'll be starting off another 1 minute from now. It's 11:04. By 11:05, we will start this webinar. Requesting all to please keep their mics on mute. It would be really helpful. Yeah, thank you. Another 1 minute, we'll be starting off by 11:05. We will start this webinar.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Santosh here. I've joined I'm from Amazon. I'm sorry if I'm late. There was some technical glitch.
Sure, sir, sure, no problem. We'll be starting off the webinar in another, I think, 10-20 seconds. Thank you. Requesting all to, in the meanwhile, keep the cameras
great.
off and the mics on mute. I think we are good to go. Manish, are we fine to start?
Yes, sir. We'll start.
Okay. So very, very good morning, all. First of all, thank you for making it on a Saturday morning. I know all of you must have had a really hectic week and maybe some spillover of meetings, but thank you all for having joined us today. Being the World Environment Month, we are having this Green Mobility Solutions and Sustainable Living webinar. My name is Sandeep Senani and I am your host for today. I'm pretty excited because this is something which we're doing for the very, very first time, right? And this is something that excites the whole Tata Group. So let's go about of what we're going to do today. First of all, some small advices, some small help that I would require from all of you. If you can just log in from one device, two devices always create the echo. If you can mute yourself, if you can keep your mobiles on silent, I'm doing that to mine as well as we speak. And also, if you have any questions, you can feel free to post it in the Q&A section. You can type out your questions, and towards the end of it, we'll answer all your questions. And if I can request all of you to keep your videos off so that we can save a little bandwidth. This is our agenda for today. A small welcome note from my side, followed by so just to brief out from Tata Motors side, we have our All India Head Sales and Marketing, Mr. Ramesh Durirajan, who will be speaking on the context of what we're doing here. We have Mr. Avinash Kulkarni, who is the head of corporate institutional sales for electric vehicles, who will be briefing about electric. And then we have a panel guest whom I will be giving a small brief about in the next slides from here, right? So today we have a wonderful, wonderful panel with us, ranging from extreme of corporates to individuals to somebody who's an EV adventurer as well. So starting off first, we have Ma'am Reva Malik. She's the co-founder at Premalize. Her interest and work involves making sense of socio-cultural systems and learning. And she has spent close to 2 decades working with different organizations focusing on natural systems and natural learning. Her organization works towards connecting or reconnecting the core essentials, making their own meaning and making, choice-making compass, and chart a roadmap for a meaningful future for people looking for such solutions. And as per us, sustainability is a concept at the core of our work for our living as well. Madam Reva and her husband, Mr. Ranjan, have been living in a house which is off-grid mud house, which has a minimal viable home called MVH, a concept that ma'am will explain on. And they're going back to the native ways of living in the nature to reconnect with elements and mend with broken energy cycles. All this while living in the city. Next on, we have Arun sir, who has 20 years of experience working in the field of telecom domain of technology, and that relates to mobility of humans. He has always thought that ICE engines or the petrol diesel engines are very overdone in terms of engineering. He comes from a very small town in Mangalore in coastal Karnataka, and he came to Bangalore in 2000. In Bangalore, he saw how environment exploitation is happening, and he tried to do his part for the environment by participating in RW initiatives. Also, he participated in the Vibhitipura Lake rejuvenation. Seeing the political hollowness towards environment, he thought that he needs to take on himself and reduce the footprint. He's doing his bit by working on non-degradable items. He owns an EV car, which he's going to talk about how he's gone through his various journeys, the Nexon EV. And he uses various means like composting wet waste, recycling, using a terrace garden to reduce his impact on the environment. Next on, we have Sudhakar Reddy sir. He is the VP Administration and Operation at SAP Labs. He is responsible for overall administration of SAP Labs India projects from the MD's office. Sustainability, crisis management, risk reporting, governance structure, health and wellness are his core domains that he looks after at SAP. Prior to his role, Sir was a finance manager at SAP Labs, and he was responsible for financial reporting, audit, payroll, etc. And prior to SAP, Sir has also worked 2 years in GEBL as well as Microland. Overall, he's a very multi-skilled professional, and today he'll be speaking about various things that his organization is doing to build towards a sustainable future. So as I mentioned, today we have, along with Ramesh sir and Avinash sir, we have my colleagues Manish as well as Jayasuriya, who will be helping us throughout this webinar as well. So thank you again for joining us. Now, before I take it ahead, I would just like to brief. I have Ramesh sir with me, who's our head sales and marketing at Tata Motors and heading the electric vehicle division as an overall. He's our guiding light, and he would like to share a few words on the context setting of how this webinar and what we are planning to do here. Over to you, sir. Ramesh sir?
I was on mute. I'm extremely sorry. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for taking time out on a weekend, on a Saturday morning, leaving aside your other work, etc., to participate in this webinar, which we consider is very, very important. In fact, when me, Avinash, and Sandeep were discussing about this, I think one of the things that we discussed was that we are here to hear all of you speak, and it would be wonderful to hear about your experiences, etc. I think at Tata Motors, as Sandeep has rightly said, there's a great amount of importance and there's a great amount of work that is being done in this field of reducing pollution and making this a much safer place to stay. And what we are doing today is for the future to make the life of all our countrymen as safe and secure as possible. Now, this is a World Environment Month, and we're doing this this webinar to integrate individual, corporates, and community, and how each one can play a role towards a sustainable future. As I said, we at Tata Motors have always considered the impact of environment we work, and we look to encourage everyone to adopt this sustainable being. And our portfolio of EV vehicle, and I'll spend a minute or two on that, are a very strong step in the direction wherein we look not only to reduce carbon footprint, but are also bringing in the consciousness among all for a better future. Now, as you all know that we have two products that we offer in this particular field. We have the Nexon electric vehicle, and we also have the Tigor electric vehicle. And just to give you a brief about what has been the driving force which leading to an EV adoption in India. So one thing we all know is about the climate change. Now, the prospect of say a rapid global temperature increase has created a need for reduction in the use of fossil fuel. So we feel that this is one of the trigger points on which we all need to concentrate upon. The other thing is on the rapid urbanization. Now, you would see that the way things are.
Sir, I think you got unmuted. Sorry, muted by error by someone. If you can just unmute yourself, Ramesh sir. Yeah. Yeah,
I have. Sorry. So, and the second point, as I said, after the climate change was the rapid urbanization. There's another thing. It's on the energy security, and this is something. Though we make ICE engine vehicles, etc., I need to tell you that the crude oil required to power an industrial ICE vehicle is susceptible to disruption from weather, say geopolitical events, and so many other factors. And we being one of the highest importers of crude oil, etc., we need to be very careful and create a future by which we can reduce our dependence on that and move towards an electric vehicle. And what we have done in Tata Motors is ensuring that the total cost of ownership for an electric vehicle, that a person who owns a vehicle, is within his means and within his reach, so that more and more people start adopting this as a way of commuting from one place to another and making this place a much healthier space. So that's all from my side. Thank you once again for coming on this webinar in the morning of a Saturday. And I would be waiting to hear from all of you about your experiences and what you want to share with us. Thank you. Over to you, Sandeep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful insight on how Tata Motors went about this whole philosophy. Next, I have our head of corporate and institutional sales for electric, Mr. Avinash Kulkarni. We'll be just giving a brief of what Tata Motors is doing and what's this whole webinar all about. Avinash, over to you. You're on mute, Avinash. If you can just unmute yourself.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. So, Sandeep, is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible. You can put in presentation mode.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, friends, thanks for joining in. The first thing what I would want to bring here, we talk about Environment Day, World Environment Day, World Environment Month, and all that, wherein each of us or the corporates at educational institutions and all, everywhere we kind of celebrate it. It is for one day, and then we are back to our square one, right? So is that enough is what the question is. And it is all about evolving from where we are currently to the next level, next generation. And electric mobility is something which is the future, and the future is here, right? And it's the right time to start looking at our actions, to start taking actions in our endeavor to see that the world is saved, right? What can electric mobility do? So Mr. Ramesh Dorajan already touched upon these points. I would like to reinforce it here once again. Urban pollution, as Bangaloreans, you are all aware, the pollution levels have gone high in Bangalore. And one more piece of information is Bangalore is one of the top 15 most polluted cities in the world, right? If we go out for a stroll in Bangalore and just wipe our face, you can see soot there. And also the kind of particulate material, the PM 2.5 particulate material, it's as high as 7 times of the normal required particulate matter, right? The suggested norms. So that is one major area where we thought this can help the adoption of e-vehicle and e-mobility there. The second, energy security and trade deficit, which are at the national level. So these are all pertinent issues. But what strikes us and what is immediately addressable is the urban pollution. While Bangalore was called a garden city, so these initiatives, what we talk about further, can help. Now, while you see 85 to 90% of the urban pollution is caused by two-wheelers and four-wheelers. 2 points I would want to highlight here and bring your attention to. For any corporate with, say, an employee strength of over 10,000 employees, the CO emission is equal to almost 2,500 tons per year, right? For any corporate with an employee strength of 10,000 employees, the CO emissions are 2,500 tons per year. Now, this is equivalent to annual absorption capacity of 1 lakh fully grown trees. So mind that, 1 lakh fully grown trees. So these are the challenges at hand. Now, the next question is, what are we leaving for our children and for next generation, right? So we may enjoy all the luxuries. We may try and bring in a lot of technological advancements. But if we keep on increasing the pollution, what is it we leave for the children? What is it we leave for our next generation? We may give them good education, good happy life and all that, but are we giving them a good future in terms of the earth, the basic, what is required? So what is that we need to do to make the world a better place? The thing is, we need to act. So friends, we, instead of just giving some insights on World Environment Day and just leaving it at that, we thought we will showcase some of the fantastic practices, the best case studies of what people have been doing in and out, or what people have been practicing. These are the heroes of our society today. And these are the people who will actually drive us and motivate us, give us more ideas on how to make this earth a more sustainable place to live in, right? And we need to act today. So what does this mean to all of us? There are two things. One is the individual social responsibility, and second is the corporate initiatives. While the government keeps doing what is best possible from their side, the change has to begin from us. So the three case studies, the three guest speakers and the experts in their field today, they talk about these two elements: the individual social responsibility, what we as individuals can contribute, what are the different corporate initiatives the company has been taking, right? So what can with the benefits of switching to electric vehicles? One, reduce the carbon footprint. Now, this is a business side of case, more so on the corporate initiative side. how can we, reduce the company cost by running EVs? And also how can we, support the employees for adopting EVs, right? So everything has its own implications. End of the day, this can make us to live in a better place, right? And if you look at the ecosystem is beautifully coming out well, right from the government, where there has been tremendous push, quite a few incentives, the FAME subsidy for the commercial application, the tax benefits for the individual buyers. Apart from that, they have also given the reduction in the GST from 12% to 5%, which has been a huge booster. So government has been doing tremendously. Apart from the state government, apart from the central government, every state government is coming up with policies. For example, Karnataka government has given a reduction in the electric tariff, right? From a level of 7-8 rupees, they have brought it down to 6 rupees, right? Apart from that, there is a huge effort from the manufacturers, where they are bringing in the technology, investing a large sum of the capital, large capital in taking the technology to the masses. Then battery manufacturing, charging infra is developed by the government themselves, and also Tata Power comes in as a charging partner here. And of course, every one of us, the individuals, the corporates, they are more than keen. So 87% of the Indian vehicle owners, they say that they want to buy electric vehicles, right? So this is how the ecosystem is coming through. And this is what I highlighted. So if you look at the aspirations of the Indian government, by 2030, 100% of all the fleet taxis should be electric. So that's the target for adoption. And at least a minimum of 40% of the individual personal transport should be electric. So that is the kind of efforts and the initiatives being done. So these are some state government initiatives to promote EV. For example, Delhi, Maharashtra, and recently Gujarat has come out with some additional subsidies for the electric vehicles. And of course, they are coming up with bylaws where 20% of the parking spaces in all the residential societies should be electric, right? And apart from that, the government has even allowed the CSR funds in the corporates for electrification. For example, a corporate wants to put in electric chargers in their campuses for their employees. That is counted as part of the CSR initiatives, right? And of course, the special tariff, which I mentioned. So these are some significant efforts from the government. And coming to what many of the corporates also have been doing. So there are two groups. One is the EV100 group, and the second is RE100 group. EV100 is where the corporates are committed themselves to adopt EVs for a sustainable future. And so also RE100 is more about the renewable initiatives, renewable energy initiatives. So they are adopting various initiatives like solar power, electric chargers, and all that, right? Then rainwater harvesting, so on and so forth. So these are some of the global level and Indian level case studies. Now, what is it we can do together? We can create significant value for all the stakeholders. The social responsibility, it can contribute to India's electrification goal, reduction in the carbon emissions. That's a huge thing. The partner development, which is a fleet operator, where we can bring down the cost of ownership, and also the better fleet uptime for the employees and the corporates for better serviceability. We can work together for employee engagement, where we bring a kind of sense of, or rather the sensitivities towards the environment and towards the initiatives, right? And also the corporate sustainability initiatives, of which we will hear from Mr. Reddy on how SAP Labs have been taken forward, right? So we can we request the corporate admin heads and the senior leaderships at the organization that we can work together on this. So while you may see that there is a business perspective to it. Yes, there is a business perspective, but at the same time, if my business perspective can touch on the larger perspective of pollution and the other things, that is like Sone Pe Suhaga, right? So let us work it out. So what we can do is we can help setting up charging infra. We can promote employee adoption, right? So these are certain initiatives which can be taken along with a joint initiative with each one of you. And we do have two products, which is the Nexon EV, which is highly accepted in the market and comes with some amazing features. So this is an amazing product. We have sold more than 5,000 Nexons. And then we have the Tigors or the Express T, which will be launching very soon. The Express T is, a product which is offered for the shared mobility and employee transportation use. So these are two updates from our side. And as holistic solution, we at Tata Motors can offer, the cars on subscription lease, shared fleet, and private cars. So these are a few offerings from us. And that's it from my side. So in the next 3 talks by our guest speakers, we will hear largely on how Mrs. Malik has been able to, adopt a sustainable living, right, with the various initiatives she has been taking, and then how Mr. Arun Somaiya has been, with his adventure trips and other things, has been able to use the electric vehicle. While you may feel that electric vehicle is a fragile and kind of it may not run, but yes, Mr. Arun Somaiya has already proven that it can be taken other ways. And then we will also look at how the SAP Labs, Mr. Reddy and his team have been able to work on these initiatives, right? So friends, this is a little perspective from my side, and over to you, Sandeep.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Avinash. That was very, very enlightening and very, very, I would say, to the point on what Tata Motors is doing towards electric and how we do want corporates to take these measures of adopting sustainability measures. Now, moving on to our first panel member, Ms. Reva Malik, and she and her husband have done something which probably very, very few have done across or probably even thought of trying across. A sustainable living that is from scratch and something which is very phenomenal and out of this world. Ma'am, over to you if you can share on how you live this sustainable life.
Voice is breaking, sir.
Okay, sure. I'll try to probably have that clear. Now, moving on to ma'am, if you can share on how you are living a sustainable life and how others could probably imbibe some or take some of those features for themselves. Over to you, ma'am.
Sure. Thanks, Sandeep, and thanks, Avinash and Ramesh, for building the context for today's talk. It's very valuable for me to know that, corporates are also looking, and not many corporates, but some corporates like you and SAP and others are also looking at something which should be at the core of thinking or think tanks. So feels good to be a part. Thank you. At my personal level, I don't think we have done too much, maybe much more needs to be done. But briefly, we'll share, how did we get here, and, maybe there are more possibilities that one could look at and go ahead with. So to start with, I think we had many questions, we as a family, my husband and I, essentially, from our life experiences, from our work experiences, many questions to why are we where we are? Ramesh also mentioned about the carbon footprint, or, what have we done to our planet? Or things like, why is there so much of pollution? Things, though they seem very simple at one level, but when we go on for looking for solutions for these, they're very complex at another end. One doesn't know where to start with, and if we have our children, playing in the playgrounds and, going to schools, living life in their houses and apartments, the air is not so safe. The water is questionable, how potable is it? So lots of questions like these. We felt, what are we doing about it? And there was an uncomfortable, unsettled, that we can't just go on living the way we are and just keep talking about sustainability and a good life and a healthy lifestyle. When we felt, we had a piece of small plot, some 3,000 square feet, very small plot. We thought we'll start, doing something there. At least it'll give us some peace of mind, and then we'll see, where it takes us. So I'll share some points that we had put down. I'll just share my screen. Yeah. Can you see the screen?
Yes, it's visible, ma'am. You can put it in the presentation mode.
I have put it, yeah, now. So those questions led us to, feel that we want to return to where we belong, return to where we belong, to being truly a part of nature. Because somewhere, we, whatever we were doing, whatever we were buying, or the kind of life we were living, human beings seem to have become the larger than life. So somewhere from being at the top of the anthropocentric pyramid, we felt somewhere if we all could look at what is this web of life, we would dream of living, with animals around, with birds. And though we were living in Bangalore in the middle of the city, we didn't know how to get to being a true part of the web of life, where it's not only humans that we are seeing. Our aspirations are not, only for human, not human centric only. So that was one of the reasons, to go to where we belong, to being a part of nature. Another aspect was all the processes that we were living. Somewhere they seem to be very linear, whether it's living processes in life or even at work end, where when a factory or when an organization produces a product, that also seemed to be very linear. It comes into the market as a product, and then that's the end of it. It gets consumed, and no one cares about where does it go? What is the disposal of it? Does it go back to? Does it complete a cycle at all? Was the question again in mind. So somewhere in this living space, we also wanted to look at whether we can go look at the processes turning from linear to cyclical, like the way in nature, every process is cyclical in nature. Where if you look at the water cycle or the food cycle or all these processes, nature has a very elegant system of even taking care of the byproducts. Food of one species become the waste of one species become the fuel or the food for another species. So it's a very elegant system. Somewhere we felt, how come we as humans haven't looked at that? For us, whatever is waste just goes down the drain, or we want to just shove it away, don't want to look at it. So we don't know after that what happens to our waste. So somewhere we felt if we also look at the waste products and therefore mend the broken energy cycles, what have we done to our cycles? So our need to reconnect with the elements also was linked to this. We also wanted to look at feedback loops, whether all the conveniences that we are living in our day-to-day living at home or offices, electricity is just, available at the click of a button, and you open the tap and there's water. Somewhere we felt it's taking us far away from reality. Somewhere we all know, sitting in Bangalore, we know that there's scarcity of water. But whether it's the money that makes things available to us or conveniences, because there are taps and there are, electricity available and other things, it gives us a false sense of abundance and control, that everything's fine. We have lots and, we don't need to do anything. Therefore, somewhere our sensing becoming numb to the reality, that, that really there is something that needs to be done. If it doesn't pain us, we won't do anything to, mend that cycle. So somewhere that was another. And yeah, we would think of sustainability, like, all of you are also talking about it. Somewhere we felt sustenance, if we really care for sustainability, sustenance has to be a core process of the ecosystem. It can't be done as an afterthought always. Sure, now that we are facing the crisis, we will have to look at how to, live sustainability. But in a living modality, it has to be a part of the core process. And in this process, we have to look at the whole ecosystem. Again, not only human beings, because then we are, we are tampering with the balance that needs to be there. We also can't live alone. Human beings can't live alone. We will need, interdependence of other creatures and other microbes in the system. Probably this pandemic, the COVID, is one example of that thing going off balance somewhere. That we are having to look at now. What do we do? Something is gone really bad. So from looking at from a malignant existence to how to become a benign one, that we are kind, we don't exploit, we are not doing all that is not even entitled to human beings. You spoke of fossil fuels. Yeah, that was even in our mind. The way we are not entitled to dig so deep into the earth. Just because we have made machines and we have the technology to just go beyond our means, whether that's justified was a question that we were living with. So like we're talking of fossil fuels are maybe not for us to use as much, even underground water, it really takes a lot to reach that core of the earth. So are we entitled to use all of that? So lots of questions which led us to where we are now. I'll just show you some pictures of this is the place. We call it Amla because this was the Amla tree was the first tree which was growing there in that piece of land. So we thought we'll call this place Amla. This is the space inside. We thought of actually even the whole idea of home. What is the idea of home was another thing that came to our mind. Somewhere we had stopped questioning of what actually a home could be and what's the objective of a home. So all that we see around in the city space or even nowadays in the villages, we have BHK systems. One can't think of a home without a BHK concept. And more we studied the traditional system, we actually felt that actually BHK wasn't there at all. Home was just one space. And we felt we needed that for our family. So this space is just actually one space. It doesn't have separate rooms. It's just the same space has some levels which are used, differently at different times of the day or when people come over. When there are more people, the whole space becomes a sleeping space at night, and the whole space becomes a living space during the day. We also didn't want to have any furniture in the house. So whatever is there is inbuilt, some levels that our parents can come and sit on, and, if they're not able to squat on the ground. So this is the kind of space. On the bottom left side, the wooden part that you see, that's our work area where we sit and do our work. It has internet connectivity. It's connected to the solar power. There's just one plug point that we have here. In the middle down, you see this is the solar cooker that we have on our terrace. Our cooking mainly happens here on the solar cooker, and there's a chula. I'll show you later. Now the right hand side bottom part is the cleaning area at the back of the house. This is the maybe we'll come to that later. So there's one hand pump. That's the only tap in the house. Where we draw water from the sump which is below this. The rainwater is collected here for all purposes. So we try not to use the borewell water that is there in the community. Again, going back to the same principle of not exploiting Earth's resources beyond what we are meant to use. So we are trying to collect as much rainwater as possible and use that. And in living, we are also trying to say that how to conserve water, not to let anything go waste. So nothing goes down the drain of sorts here. Everything gets used. Even the cleaning water comes back into the same plot to be used in the garden. There's a grey water system that you see behind the hand pump. The water gets cleaned here, and there's a tank where it collects, and we bring it back to the garden to use it. So this is the main living space.
Ma'am, just a small time check. Yeah,
sure. I'll go fast. At night, this is how it looks. Somewhere we also felt that darkness is an essential part of the natural ecosystem. Just because we have electricity so readily available and it's so easy to switch on lights and keep the whole area lit all the time, we felt maybe we are doing disservice to our own bodies somehow. So maybe darkness has an essential role to play in our lives. Maybe hormonal changes, maybe our personalities or something on our skin, and lifestyle diseases come from maybe not being in darkness so much. So we actually don't have lights in our house. No fan, no light. Electricity is there, but only for the charging the EV and there's a air water generator I'll take you to. So that's how the house looks at night. Food grows there in that plot, and these are the food systems. I mean, we use the solar cooker and the wood fire chulha to cook our food. These two things, you know, when on cloudy days the chulha is used more often, other days solar cooker is sufficient for our cooking. All this food grows there. This is the solar dryer that we have to just roast our snacks and suji and stuff like that. Things, and because there are no mixies and no refrigerators, so we have other hand kind of machines that we use. All the abundant produce like amla, we had in abundance, the gooseberry, nelikai. So we made pickles, we actually distributed to our neighbors, and we actually ended up making arishtam wine also because there was so much. And even the disinfectants are made using eucalyptus leaves and lemongrass and stuff like that. So life at Amla. So these are lots of flora and fauna around there. Again, a realization that, you know, somehow pests and all, the way we all think, we haven't questioned our mindsets also, you know, how we want to shoo away certain things, those which are actually essential for our living. If we use harsh pesticides and, you know, disinfectants, actually all these won't be able to thrive, which actually interferes in the balance of the natural ecosystem. So lots of, fauna happens there. They keep visiting us, and there's this whole negotiation that at play all the time, you know, which is our space and which is there. Some are welcome, some we don't want, like snakes and all. But just the brooming or mopping of the floor every day keeps them away. They know that, oh, that's not our area. So all this grows there. We use that into our cooking processes. I would just want to talk a bit on these. Somewhere that house is more about processes, you know, and not the house or, you know, lots of things. Whatever grows there, becomes our food, and the waste from that goes into our compost bin, which comes back into the garden. So actually nothing goes away. Everything stays in front of our eyes, whether it is the food chain or the water cycle or even the cow dung or the manure that we get, we use it to, do it on the floor so that it stays clean, that area. The wood that we burn or the coconut shells that get burnt in the wood on the chulha, it gives out ash. Now that ash is used to wash the vessels. And it also, the refuse, that water, the ash water that goes into the grey water system actually takes in carbon from the ash, and it helps cleanse the water. So it's a beautiful cycle that, we are also discovering, and it's amazing to say how we were not aware of it till we actually became a part of it. These are the systems that help us live our life comfortably. The topmost left corner is the compost bin. So we don't have a dustbin in that house. Don't need it because whatever the kitchen vegetable peels and all go straight into this, this mesh bin, and even we have hens, the poop of the hens, that also goes into this compost bin, and this rich compost goes back into the garden. Then we have below is the biodigester. That's the toilet waste, the human fecal waste goes into this. Now this is a technology that DRDO had developed, so it also saves a lot of water for us. We don't have to flush it so many times. And then the bacteria in this, there's an inoculum that actually treats the fecal matter, and it actually gives out waste water, which is clean water, ready to be used into the garden. Then this is the grey water system that cleans our toilet, the bathroom water and the kitchen water, and again that is also used in the garden. Then the solar system, and this is the air water generator. So we don't have to draw water from the borewell. Actually, we use the rainwater to drink directly. We have not used the water filters that are available in the market. When rainwater is not available, when the stored rainwater is over, then we use this atmospheric water generator, which turns moisture into water, and it gives us enough water to use for our daily use. Then our electric vehicle, the Nexon, which just fits so well into our way of living that, we are feeling very good about it, because actually we don't need electricity otherwise in the house, but it's for charging this that, we use it. We have a very small solar power also installed, but it's just a 850 VA, solar panel, because somewhere we are also exploring other ways, looking at even for solar, in the manufacturing of the solar panels or in the disposal of the batteries, how probably we'll have better technology in the coming days when the demand is more. So it will be even a more elegant system. But so far, I think with this kind of a system of living and this car, it just works very well for us. This on the extreme right top, we made a chicken coop for our hens using the bamboo that was growing there on campus and grass that was here. So I mean, actually, we don't have to now go out to buy things. Everything just grows within the systems. Yeah, in a way, a minimum viable home also addresses many of the things that, the aspirations which are placed, for youngsters who are out of college and looking for jobs and salaries. There's this unending trap that we are in of how much is enough kind of a thing. So somewhere we felt actually living in this kind of a home doesn't need too many resources. So a minimum viable home, the minimum essential habitable setup that allows you to grow your ideal home around you and while living in it. So it's not a setup. In fact, we don't have much storage space also by design, because the more you accumulate, then the more we end up not knowing what to do with all that we have. So, and we keep iterating it. It's just a structure that we have. It keeps shifting basis our life stage also, and the needs that we have. As you begin to organize your life in the minimum viable home, you modify, add or delete parts of it. This organically iterative living leads to you building a home that's unique to you. So this has been a realization over the time. And well-being as a consequence. Our guiding philosophy while setting up a home has been everyday living must nourish enough physically, mentally, and socially, so that we can add environmentally also to this, so that we aren't dependent on artificial supplements like gyms and other such deliberate well-being related interventions. Sustenance as a core process for the ecosystem. Then we won't have to worry about sustainability separately. If sustenance becomes a core process of all, whether work ecosystems or living ecosystems, somewhere that becomes an afterthought quite often. So that's the end of the slide. So basically that's how it has been, looking at processes more than products, even living not so much as a product but living as a process. So that's been. Over to you, Sandeep. I'm done.
No, great, ma'am. Great. I think nobody would have imagined the way we are living today. I mean, we have Swiggy, Zomato to spoil us so much, and there are so many such various ways that actually people could live a normal living, right? And really, it's opened our eyes to many processes that we can do very simple and very nice way and give back to nature as well. Like you said, the gym is not required. We might as well exercise. But great, ma'am. So that's a wonderful thing about sustainable living, and I think it's a great thing that you and your husband are doing. Wishing you best in this whole this one. Hope some of our audiences, some of our corporates are able to imbibe at least few of these things that we take up. Thank you so much, ma'am. Right.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next on, we have Arun sir, who is a very avid EV enthusiast. I mean, he's traveled with his Nexon EV throughout, I would say, many different places, right? And it would surprise you all on his EV journeys. Over to you, Arun sir. Just a small information on the time check. If we can keep time in mind, it will be really helpful for all, because that would help all. Yeah, thank you. You can unmute yourself, sir. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm audible?
Absolutely.
Okay. There's so much more we can do. Thanks, Reva, for the presentation. I think I'm just in the starting of what all you have already done and went through. So on my journey in itself, I would want to start with saying that mobility is something that gives me freedom. So for around 15-20 years of my encounter with mobility, or since I got my driving license on 18, I never looked back to see if how much environmental footprint I'm building up, and how can I compensate it. But I always thought that the ICE engines or the fuel consumption guzzlers are an over-engineered product, and for the freedom that I want, an electric solution certainly is more viable and more better solution. So when I bought an electric car, I had no thinking back that I will go keep my ICE car for some long distance journeys or some specific commutes. I wanted to replace everything with the electric car. First question anyone, or the myth I would say anyone would have is how to charge an electric car. If it is at home, the company will set up one specific charging location for you. You can charge your car. The fact is, an electric car can be charged with a normal 15 amp socket. So this, once we know this, I think it's a no-brainer. Electric car can go everywhere. Another thing anyone would have a question is about what do we do if we have to charge in between? There are no fast chargers today. Again, that is a myth. I bought my electric car. I think I was an early pioneer to buy one in the month of March last year. And since then, I've seen that the whole left to right, I would say from Arabian Sea to the Bay of Bengal, everything is now covered through the electric grid or the framework that Tata Power, Xeon or Bescom have put in. So we have fast chargers all through the way. I think with these two slides, it becomes much more for us to say that making a long distance journey in an electric car is no brainer. But anyway, that myth exists. How do we make an electric journey inter-city commutes? Electric car journey. I would want to present some of my trips that I have done. I have done, my native is Mangalore, so that's around 350 kilometers from Bangalore. So when I bought my car, my total user profile or my car usage is around 7,000 kilometers in city commute and around 7,000 kilometers of this inter city commutes. That includes my drive to my point B or my second home in Mangalore, and some of these trips to holiday destinations and some other emergency travels. So initially there was no fast charger in the month of March when I bought my electric car. And then there was lockdown, and as soon as the lockdown was lifted, I wanted to try my first journey to Mangalore. What I did is I contacted Tata Motors in Hassan, that is a Midway, and asked them if I could plug to their 15 amp socket for a couple of hours to charge, and they gladly agreed. So that is how I started my first long distance journey. Traveled 352 kilometers in 4-hour additional pit stop, more than I would say the petrol or a diesel car. I had to stay 4 hours more, but that was only a temporary phenomena. Recently, when we did the same trip, I only had to stop for 30 minutes of fast charge in Edur. And I know that Xeon is also coming up with fast charger in this way. Tata Power has some additional plans. So I think slowly this route for me, the point B, the location to my native, is become a no-brainer. It's as good as traveling in a nice car. Yes, there is a difference. You may have to plan. For example, if it was a petrol car, you can start with an empty tank, go out, tank up in the morning in a petrol pump, 24/7 petrol pump, and then go to Mangalore. In this case, you have to charge overnight, keep your car for charge overnight. But that's also not here to stay. For example, in Bangalore, Bescom has fast chargers across. So morning you can go down to a fast charger, charge for 30 minutes, and then top up your car to 100% in 30 minutes. If you are say 50% already, if you have 50% charge in your car, and then go down. So distance traveling long distance in an EV would soon become like any other cars. And for me, yeah, I had to be pioneering some stuff, but then that is so much fun. Next, about traveling to the other cases that I had was traveling to Mangalore, to Madikeri, to Mysore, to Bangalore. This was again a use case that I tried because there was fast charger that had come up in Mysore. So I didn't have to do a big pit stop to charge my car. So I came till Madikeri, visited one of my friend's place where I charged for a couple of hours, came to Mysore, did a full charge, and then came to Bangalore. So all this, what I'm saying is about in a day's journey. And normally we do not do a travel of 500 plus kilometers in a day. And with an EV, I could do most of this similar journeys, maybe spending 1 or 2 hours more time. You may call it a break for lunch or a breakfast with your friend. Or tomorrow when you have fast chargers, you can do that in a fast charger stop. I also did Chikmagaluru. There was a specific purpose when I did the trip to Chikmagaluru. I have a friend's house in Chikmagaluru, so I went there, topped up. I went to the highest peak in Chikmagaluru hills. So I wanted to see how my car performs. We talked about that. I did a Ooty trip. That was, I would say, quite an adventurous one because at least from the concept in it, Ooty has the short route which has some 20 plus hairpin bends. And there is a very steep maneuver. From Mysore to this foothills of Ooty, the elevation drops from around 700 meters to 500 meters. And then there is a steep climb to 2,200 meters. I would want to tell you about how this car drives there, but let's get that once we are off this long distance travel possibility from an EV. And then from Ooty, I came back to Bangalore, the 417 kilometers through Salem. We had the fast charger from Xeon there before Salem, so I topped up there. So one fast charge top up, I did the 417 kilometers, and I had a good break, good lunch. I think, yeah, it was a lunch time. I had a good lunch in between. So all these journeys, what we are seeing is of long distance travel is easily doable today, provided a little planning about what your pit stops would be. Where would you want to pit stop and how you want to duplex the time that you take for charging by having probably a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner in between so that you don't feel you are waiting for it. And with respect to pleasure of driving, EVs don't have clutch. EVs just have a motor which has a torque from 0 RPM. So let it be for an overtaking maneuver or let it be for a relaxed driving, EV is super comfortable. So that is the car for long distance drive. Now coming to the third myth that I would say, is EV capable of doing all the kind of roads in India? I had been to most difficult road terrains. Let it be with respect to the incline that the car has to travel, or let it be with respect to the motorable condition of the road. Lot of gravels, mud, and EV does everything. The highest motorable peak in South India, claimed by Doddabetta Peak near Ooty. We went there. And the hairpin bends that I was talking about, there was this Innova, this Chevrolet, what is that? Another car in front of us. And they were struggling with maneuvering gears after a hairpin bend. And our car was waiting behind them just to give space to go ahead. The fact that you are going to this beautiful scenic places, the fact that you are going to nature's own place and not making a whisper of sound, plus not emitting any carbon dioxide, makes you feel so much high. And then when the car is so much powerful, because it is housed with an electric motor, which has an RPM, which has a torque at 0 RPM. I mean, you feel just above anything else. That's the kind of freedom that an electric car gives. Talk about the Chikmagalur trip to Mullayanagiri. We were 7 adults in the car. 3 of us, me, my wife, 2 kids for me. And then, you can consider 1 seat for them. And then from my relatives, place in Chikmagalur, they have 4 people. So totally we were 7 people, or 6 plus 2 kids. We went all the way up, and the car did not disappoint. It had torque anytime, every time. If in the guards, in the steep incline, if there is a vehicle coming from ahead, we could, and if I had to go for a full stop, I just still had to just press the accelerator, and it did go up. So beautiful experience with my EV. I will keep it at that. If there is any questions on the EV journey, I'm more than willing to take. Thank you.
Arun sir, I think that was phenomenal. In fact, your experiences, I had goosebumps in some of the stories that you're mentioning. I think just wonderful. This is something which is very, very unique, something which is very daring. And I think this is possible only by a person who is wanting to take the first move, or wanting to take that first step towards this direction. So you've busted 3 myths: that EVs can travel on any roads, EVs can do guard sections very easily, and obviously charging is the biggest myth for EVs, right? I mean, we have a good charging network, and you have so many other parameters. Thank you, sir. I think great having you for this webinar. Moving on, sorry, did I miss something? Hello?
No, that's it.
Sure. Thank you. So moving on, I have with us Mr. Sudhakar Reddy. He's the VP at SAP Labs, and he'll be sharing his views on how SAP has done good for the environment, the ecology, by working with its employees. And that's the whole objective. We want the community, the individual, and the corporate to play that role. So the last link, which is the corporate link, is what we're trying to bring in through Sudhakar, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sandeep. Hope I can take additional 15 minutes time from all the participants.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you to all the panelists for the greater insights on the sustainability EV journey. It's amazing, right? Today I'm going to cover from the corporate side. I know that participants are there from corporates and as well as from individual side, right? Good morning from my side to again all the participants. Thanks to Tata Motors for having me in this event. As many of you are aware, sustainability is very important and got high attention of many nations, global leaders, corporate societies, and individuals. From past several years, enough of awareness happening on this topic in global media, social media, press, conference, and even within the companies. Why it is important to the corporates? Because sustainability profitable and profitability sustainable. I repeat, making sustainability profitable and profitability sustainable. Otherwise, corporates cannot sustain in long term unless it is profitable, right? Climate action is top of mind for many companies. The pressure to reduce CO2 emissions is coming from all directions, investors, customers, and regulators. But how can leaders safeguard earnings without CO2 data transparency? How can they show competitiveness if no benchmarks exist? And how can they steer the right action in the face of such uncertainty? To help to deal with these types of complex questions, SAP has launched Climate 21, an initiative to help customers minimize the CO2 footprint for their products, operations, and supply chains. Since you may be you already aware that 75% of the world business transactions touch SAP systems, we are uniquely positioned to use our analytical tools and transactional systems to help customers in all industries and along their full supply chain. Climate 21 is the climate-related solution for our customer needs.
So you want to project the slides in meanwhile?
Yes. Today, I'm going to share some of the best practices. It's what SAP has done. I think it's some of you will be having some kind of a learnings, obviously here. Then my screen is visible, Sandeep?
Yes, sir.
SAP has its own, the products is coming up very strongly to take care of the sustainable initiatives in every company's processes. The second thing, as a company, it's what we are doing, because SAP is aligned with UN Sustainable Development Goals, which all of you are aware of it, the 17 goals. Some of the initiatives, key initiatives, what we have done in our company are this. Other panelists also already spoke about the water importance. We have installed some water flow restrictions in our corporates, and we also have its waterless urinals. Then guidance to use paper, small tissue paper, just for example, like you would have seen one person goes tuck, he will pull out some 4 to 5 tissue papers and put it in dustbin. There it's one is enough, right? That's a kind of small awareness things which we have put in. It has a lot of impact. Clean desk policy and dustbin separators. You can see this manure for home gardens from the whatever the waste generated from the campus, and the reduction of e-waste. Instead of plastic using, we have its water decanters in our offices, and weighing machines at cafe, the waste weighing machines, so that if somebody is putting their waste, it's very cognizance of the fact that how much food they are wasting, so that they will be. Here is some of the pictures. This is on-site pictures which we have taken. SAP is having its more than 167 EV cars. We all of you are aware of it. We are all in work from home environment. I'm talking about its Q1 2020. We had it's almost 167 plus EV cars, and we have 44 charging stations inside the campus, both for employees and as well as for the employee transportation. We do have a lot of our employees owning the electric cars here. We also had electric vehicle scheme, which provided some subsidy to our employees and giving some green allowance and free charging power, and also preferential car parking. If somebody is having a EV, we have a dedicated car parking space in the campus. We started this journey, it's almost 10 years back, and from there on, we are taking care of it, employee commute as well as the individual employee electric cars. Not only for the this, and we do also very mindful for the first mile and last mile connectivity. Here are some electric bikes pictures. These bikes will be used from office to nearest metro stations or the city railway stations. And we do have this battery operated mopeds. Apart from that, inside the campus, we do have some bicycles to roam around inside the campus. Some of the pictures, we are very firm believer of the having its green energy, and our campus almost 90% power comes from the greenhouse energy. Here greenhouse means solar, wind, hydro, right? And some of the solar panels at SAP office pictures. We as a company at the time of building itself, we are very mindful having all sustainable features as part of the building. We are a platinum LEED certificate building. Some of the awards as a corporate one, not only the just it's electric vehicles or from the thing. There are as a responsible corporate, it's contribution to quality education, gender equality, right? Then partnership for the other goals to the larger society. With all these things as a quick glimpses of what SAP is doing and how we are maintaining our EV vehicles. Our target also, we want to achieve 100% electric vehicles rollout in next 1 year's time from the date of operation, because we also tested. I completely agree with Arun. EVs, you can very easily manage even its airport transfers or maybe back-to-back trips. We have already tested. We are very confident. Currently, 90% of our fleet runs through EV, but we wanted to make sure it will reach 100%. With that, it's thank you from my side, and over to you, Sandeep.
Really, thank you, sir. I think that was very crisp, and you hit many points to the dot, right? It's like an end-to-end sustainable solution that SAP has worked on. And yeah, I mean, all these examples, all these stories of community, individual, as well as corporate, I think that's bringing in a sense of giving back to this environment and thinking about for the future generations. Thank you so much, sir. If I can have all the panel members with their cameras on, we'll take on some of the questions which have come up here. So Mr. Manoj, I'll take the first question here. Mr. Manoj Ninan has asked, what about e-waste and its impact? I think Sudhakar sir, maybe you can elaborate on e-waste and how if SAP has a plan on handling e-waste, that's electric waste.
Yeah, the electric waste is, see what happens is that we have, primarily it comes from all your IT equipment, servers, etc., whatever it is, right? There, we do have, government approved e-waste service provider, the tie-up. How it happens is that after identifying all these then the vendor personnel will come and they will ensure as per the defined process, they take care of the destruction of these assets through environment friendly in the office. Then after that, we do also get a kind of a certificate, which is very important to the corporate, how you are managing, right? That's how it happens.
Okay. Reva, any thoughts of you on e-waste? Since I mean, some of your thoughts are very radical, so maybe would you have any opinion on that?
Just another question again in my mind. I won't have a solution to it yet, but that how do we create so much of waste? Whenever we are buying something, at that point only, if we look at not to throw things so easily. If that becomes a culture of a space, either a house or a workspace, things shouldn't be thrown away so easily. This whole thing of things becoming obsolete is becoming a fad or a fashion, even production is happening in a manner that things become obsolete so easily. Who's in whose favor is this obsoleteness? Because and where does the garbage or where does the waste go? E-waste is even more dangerous than some of the usual home kind of peel. So yeah, we need to be very responsible. First to see from at the input stage how much comes in, and then at the output stage, whose responsibility is it to take it to the end. That's where I am.
Great,
If
ma'am.
it
Great.
pains us, we will do something about it. Yes.
Right, you're saying at the source itself, we need to look at it. I would request Mr. Amar Narayan, sir, to just switch off the camera. Any question you have, sir, you can type it in the question and answer box, sir, because I'll be taking questions.
I'm not able to type the question. If you allow me, I would like to say a few words about the e-mobility.
Please, sir, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Amar Narayan, and I'm the former IAS officer. I was the first one in the country to use an electric vehicle to commute from office to home and home to office. At that time, we didn't have Tata Nexon. Otherwise, I would have bought one. I had to go in for Reva, Mahindra E2O, which was available in the market. And I applied for the sanction with the government. Government, without asking a single question, I got the car within 1 week. It's very difficult to get a vehicle in government, but as Transport Commissioner, I told the government that I would like to reduce the carbon footprint and I would like to showcase this for the entire country. I was invited by the MORTH. Then I made a presentation and I gave them a simple fact about the ICE vehicles and the amount of fossil fuels we are importing and the amount of foreign exchange we are losing and the amount of ill health we are getting because of the fossil fuels and the ICE engines. So the MORTH, from then onwards, they started making a policy. I have a role in the EV policy of Karnataka. After my buying that car, it was the keys of the car were given by the then Chief Secretary, Mr. Kaushik Mukherjee, in front of the Vidhan Sabha. I had all those photographs to share with you, but the thing is, I am only a guest now, and if I'm permitted, I will share it some other time. Now the impact was immediately the MORTH minister, the then minister, ordered that all transport commissioners should buy a EV. At that time, whatever the EV was available. So it was Mahindra EV. It had no range except for 80 to 100 kilometers. Then charging also was a problem. This was in 2014. I am speaking of a 15-year-old story. Now it is 2021. We have advanced cars. Yesterday, I was on a webinar with the Bangalore University students. It is called Vichara Kalarava, wherein a number of issues are being discussed by the Bangalore University for their students. In fact, I told them, if you are all going in for a new vehicle, maybe a scooter, a mobile, or a car, please go in for an electric one. Why? I gave all the reasons which the panelists have already explained to us. And then regarding the EVs, now everybody is afraid of the cost. I have an EV. I have sold it very recently. That was again E2O, which was bought in 2014. It gave me a lot of service till recently. Now I have sold it. Now I have booked a Nexon only to see that the carbon footprint is reduced. I also have a Tata Hexa for a long range. After hearing Arun, now I would like to dispose of that car and use only one EV in my house. The best practices in my house, being an IAS officer, everybody thinks that we are anti policies. No, in fact, now it is the high time that Tata or any electric vehicle company should come forward for green allowance, or we should talk to the government to give a green allowance to its employees to encourage EVs. And secondly, I charged my electric car as a transport commissioner in my own office by using solar panels. Now, what I have done in my house, I would like to showcase. Here at the background, you see all lovely plants. These are out of my own compost. I have a 35 by 50 plot. We are living in this house for the last 41 years. We were the earlier settlers in Indiranagar. This is a house built by the housing board. We have just refurbished it. These are the plants which I have grown out of my own home compost. And above me, you see the solar panels. So these panels give me 6.5 kilowatt of power. I sell it to the BESCOM. The rest of it I use here, and my house is a greenhouse. I am very proud to say that. And you can see the at the background, you can see my terrace garden. And from this garden, whatever compost I produce, I use in this garden. I also have a small kitchen garden wherein I grow greens. Especially in the COVID time, I've also made a small nursery here out of the plastic plastic covers we receive in the form of when we buy provisions, we get a lot of plastic covers. So I have put all of them in the small plants, and I'm growing small plants for distribution to the needy. And that's great stuff. These are the greens I'm growing out of my own compost. I buy a very little of red earth and do it. And these are all medicinal plants. This is curry leaf. This is moringa. And a lot of it. Okay. And I would like to show the only one thing. The last point is this small thing. Can you see this?
Not quite visible. Yeah, now it's visible.
This is my compost. It is a 2-pot method. I put all my food waste into this, that is kitchen waste, and I'm making excellent compost. And this takes me, it takes only 5 to 7 minutes a day. And I spend most of my time by what is called composting. And about the recycling of waste, there is nothing waste. There is nothing called as waste. We think that it is even 1 gram of waste is not produced in my house. All the paper I recycle, all the plastic I reuse or reduce, and all the glass I give it back to the society. And I sell waste, that is paper waste, plastic waste, and other waste to a vendor, and I earn something like 200 or 300 rupees. Supposing I want to dispose it to the landfill, it will take about 5,000 rupees per trip. So that is the reduction of waste in our own house. And secondly, somebody was talking about the e-waste. There is going to be a tsunami of e-waste in the coming days. There is going to be a very huge impact, environmental impact of e-waste in the days to come, because everywhere and in everybody's hand, there is an electronic or electric device, even your own mobile phone. How do you dispose it off? I think SAP Labs has done one wonderful job by giving that to the vendors. And though the government has there is an order, e-waste disposal order, which was issued in 2016, but there is hardly any compliance for that. So I would like to associate with Tata Motors for 2 things. One is we must make EVs more popular in the market. And number 2, about the e-waste. E-waste has to be what's called disposed of in a systematic way, for which there is technology available. There are companies which can come forward to do it in a very big way. I can introduce those technologies to the Indian, but they are all in Singapore doing wonderful work, but they are not in India, though they are Indians. An Indian in Singapore is doing wonderful job, but is not in India.
Sandeep, I just wanted to say, regarding the e-waste, and like now we have in EV, I as a customer will be very happy if Tata helps or takes the responsibility of, the end-to-end solutions for it. I'll feel so good, that Tata is giving me that assurance that, and even knowing, big brands like Tata and others, that they will take it to a good end. They'll not irresponsibly throw it away.
Just to share, just to share on that, we are working along with Tata Power for a second life for batteries, wherein we are trying to find even post when a car battery is utilized, right, for your charging stations or for your grids, right, you require you require storage, huge storage capacities. So these batteries will find a second life there. That is what we are planning about.
I would like to finish in 1 minute. Now,
Sure.
there are two more issues. One is the discarded batteries, where they should land, like whether it is going to be whether they will land in Tata Power company or some place where they should be disposed of scientifically, number one. Number two, solar charging. Now, nowadays, everybody is talking of carbon footprint and green power. Wherever you want to set up a charging station, please go in for a solar charging station like what I have done on my rooftop. I not only use for my car, I also sell it to the. I'm helping the society by giving 5 kilowatt every day. And number
Sure.
three, I have also a rainwater harvesting system. It's located here.
Fine.
Can you see?
Yes, we can see that, sir.
Yeah, I use this water to water all my plants. So it is
Great.
good. You invited me to this seminar. I'm thankful to Mr. Nagesh, who was in my house on the other day when I booked the car. So let us make our India more green, more clean, and more livable place in the world. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Amarnath sir. That was very informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the next question that we have, because there's a paucity of time. Mr. Manoj sir has asked, would you like to know more what is happening on public charging infra? Right now, it's the biggest concern to buy an EV. So Manoj sir, public charging definitely is picked on in a great manner. Tata Power is setting up close to about, right now they have about 150 fast charging stations across India. This is planned to go up to about 250 to 300 numbers going forward based on demand. The Department of Heavy Industries has also set up charging plans, and they have a target of close to about 1,000 charging stations. So I think going forward on highways, maybe every 50 to 100 kilometers, you'll have public charging. In cities, anyways, the BESCOMs or the DISCOMs are playing their role in setting up charging stations. I hope that answers your question. Next question is from Mr. Manoj Haridas. He says depreciation of EV assets seems to be disproportionate in comparison to IC engine assets. So EV assets depreciation is always based on demand and supply in case of automobiles. Currently, there are not much supply in the market. There are not many electric vehicles in the market to determine resale value. Once resale value is determined by the demand that is there, automatically this will go up. So today, nobody, in fact, the number of electric cars that we have sold with, hardly, I think, maybe one car has come up for resale in the last, I think, 1.5 years. And that person had to travel abroad for a job change. That's the only resale value that we had. Next question is from Mr. Stanley. He says, is there a way of overcoming challenges on charging like charging bank, charge time reduction, so that it's feasible as filling fuel station as pit stops are reduced? That's a great thought, sir. But right now, for that kind of a setup, we would require a huge, I would say, a huge research think tank who would have to set up these a portable charging kind of a solution. Because currently the power that you require to fast charge EV is close to about 25 kilowatt. Now 25 kilowatt, if you have to do from a portable charger, the number of batteries or the complexity required is very, very high. Maybe sometime in the future, but not as of now. Next question is again from Mr. Stanley. Is there a solution for outstation drives like, let's say, 300 to 400 kilometers? I hope Mr. Arun's presentation and his coverage of various adventures that he's had. I mean, there's one journey that he's put one side 400 kilometers. So round trip, it would have been much higher. So definitely it is possible. It's only how you map across your journey with slow as well as fast charging. Mr. Manoj Haridas has a question. Is there a mileage range of EVs in India less compared to EVs of other geographies? Is the mileage per charge improved? Then I'm sure people will move towards EVs. Well, sir, today in India, you can always have a very high range EV as well, but then cost becomes a factor. Today, we do have an EV which costs about 26 lakhs and gives a range of about 350 to 400 kilometers, right? But when you do that, how many people are willing or how many people can afford 25 to 26 lakhs? That is the question. Hence, we are
to add to that, Sandeep.
Please.
It's also about the profile of drive that you have. For example, in US, you may have a long stretch of road which is 400 miles, you can do it in 4 hours, In India, you don't have such a road. So it also goes with how much, how much you want to drive in a day. In India, in any good road, if you're doing 400 kilometers in a day, that's a long journey. And if a car goes 200 kilometers and you have one fast charger in between where you can also have your pit stop for a food, you're done. So the range should be in accordance to the availability of the roads, the infrastructure, not with respect to just having a large battery pack in your car. What is the key is to have the fast chargers come up in the road that you want to travel. That's all. Not really the range of the car. That's a myth actually. That's a part of a myth about being able to do long-term journeys, long drives.
That's a very practical answer, sir. That's a very practical answer. Somebody, Mr. Sandeep Kumar has asked, is there any chance of electric shock? What's the safety factor in electric vehicles? Let me assure you, there is no such thing of an electric shock factor that you have in electric vehicles. These are well insulated. They have IP ratings as well, so they are dust and water resistant as well. So chances of electric shock are minimal, or let's say negligible in case of electric car. I'm taking some of these questions because some of them are technical. I'll come back to the panel once I find them relevant for them to take it up. Mr. Umesh has asked CNG versus EV, which is most renewable, right? It's a good question because CNG is also coming up, but the way overall globe has been, CNG has been a transitionary factor. Sudhakar sir, any thoughts of yours on CNG versus EV?
No, Sandeep, we did not explore that CNG option because now EV is going to be more sustainable, and the entire world is moving towards that. Our focus was more into EV. Yeah, it's nothing much.
Great, sir. In fact, for CNG, yeah, please, ma'am, go ahead.
So I was thinking maybe in areas like these, maybe we should again go back to what's the source of that fuel. Even electric also we need to really think hard. If electricity is also produced using coal, then we really need to think, so what is our, aggregate footprint? Therefore, so, that way if we gauge.
In fact, just to elaborate on that question, the reason EVs are taking space because India is a power surplus country, and most of our power is thermal, right? And once we, so what India's plan is, once we go beyond in terms of our power consumption, the green sources. If you saw a few days back, there was a big conglomerate who announced that their plan is to go green, and everybody is looking at solar or wind power as sources of energy. So gradually, as thermal keeps on reducing, renewable is the way that will take forward to support. Today, renewable is not viable because there is not much demand. Renewable become viable once there's demand in the market, and that's the reason electric. CNG always has the hindsight of oil, which has crude, which keeps on growing in price any which ways. Next question is, yeah.
Just to add, we are growing very fast with respect to renewable energy as a source of our grid. We are at 38% today and growing really fast. Second, CNG, though, there are opinions, but when your car travels within the city, you still emit carbon dioxide. Yes, coal thermal source plants may be located outside of the city, may generate carbon dioxide outside the city. Here, you are breathing those carbon dioxide still in the city. So that way, there is a difference. And of course, electricity, the ratio of conversion of energy from one media to another media is the percentage is much higher. So on all these aspects, I think electric mobility is something that we need to look for and not diverse from it. People also talk about this hydrogen-based vehicles, where hydrogen is generated from electricity from the solar panels. So there are many things that are coming up, but I think what is viable today is as the most sustainable source is an EV, electric vehicle. for sure.
Great. So some facts that you brought out, I was not aware, the 38% utilization. Thank you. Thank you for that.
It's just a Google data.
Great presence of mind. Next question is from Mr. R. Shivkumar. How much time does it take to full charge, and will it suit different charger? So the Nexon slow charging takes about both Nexon as well as Tigor take about 10 to 11 hours. Fast charging time is about 1 hour in the Nexon and about 2 hours in the Tigor. Mr. Prabhas Ryan Pinto has asked, how much does it cost per charge if you charge outside, and how much does it cost per kilometer? Arun sir, you want to answer that, because you actually must be using charging outside as well as you calculate charge per kilometer.
Yeah, there are different operators today on the space of fast chargers. There is Xeon, there is Tata Power, and there is this Bescom in Bangalore. Bescom charges the cheapest 8 rupees, 7.99 rupees per kilowatt. That translates to some, say, if you are using some 25 kilowatt, 20 kilowatt, I mean, you are 20% charged, assuming that. It is around 160 rupees or 180 rupees for a full charge. And with that, you can go 200 kilometers. So it is less than 1 rupee per kilometer per se. If you're charging at home, you are again, it depends upon your threshold that you are reaching. So cheapest being 4 rupees or something in Karnataka, all the way goes till 8 rupees, depending upon your home charge current rates. So again, all falls below 1 rupee per kilometer. With respect to fast charge like Xeon and Tata Power, they charge 20 rupees or 18 rupees plus GST for a kilowatt. So that comes to around 2.5 rupees. So on a long journey, say midway, when you are charging at fast charger, it comes to 2.5 rupees. When you go back your home or any 15 amps plug short and do a slow charge, it comes to 1 rupee per kilometer.
Great, sir. Great.
That's the rate. Compared to 100 rupees per liter, I think we are 1/10 of the cost.
It's a huge saving in today's time. I mean,
certainly. I think this is one source. Electric mobility is one source where, like Reddy sir said, it's a win-win. You are sustaining. Also, you are becoming economically viable. I think I see it's a no-brainer except for the myths that are there around it.
And thanks, you've broken many myths for us today. Great. Another question from Mr. Prabhas Ryan Pinto is, what if your car is out of power between a ghat section and you are with family and kids? Now, see,
I like to answer.
Please go ahead, sir.
This is as good as if you are in a ghat section with your petrol car and your petrol tank is empty. See, if your petrol tank is empty, I mean, in your ghat section, you have the same problem. Why we think that is not a problem is because today we have every 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers a petrol pump. But I will not go away from this question. Electric cars are more modern cars. They exactly give you the percentage of charge in the car at any point in time. They warn you much in advance. So when a charge goes around 25%, the charge level is shown on your tachometer, or not tachometer, the dashboard. It is shown in amber color, and it makes you tell that you need to go and charge. And then once it is amber, it will still able to go 50-60 kilometers, like a petrol car. And there is no way that an electric car abruptly becomes zero charge, because there are checks and balances put in place in these cars where such scenarios don't occur. It is like petrol tank cannot become empty suddenly. Either there should be a hole in the petrol tank. Similarly, unless there is a glitch, this doesn't happen. So I have not experienced. In fact, Tata Motors, kept on updating the software for other things, but I never experienced a percentage of power suddenly becoming zero. It is gradual. It is informed. It will tell you how many more kilometers you can drive, and if you will end up being in a ghat section when you reach zero, then we should accordingly charge up before entering the ghat section. So it is as safe as having a petrol car, with respect to charge becoming zero? I would want to answer it this way.
Oh, great, sir. I think it's about planning and putting that out in advance.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Prabhas is asking, I heard you keep changing the battery every 4 months, which will cost you 20,000. Sorry, sir. I mean, such a thing is never there that you need to replace battery every 4 months. In fact, we are giving a 8-year or a 1.6 lakh kilometer warranty on the motor as well as the battery. So, I mean, this is definitely a wrong information. Mr. Manoj Haridas has asked, does all Tata sales and service centers have fast charging station? If yes, they are open during night hours as well. Yes, almost 80 to 90% of our sales and EV electric vehicle sales service centers have charging stations. Opening during night at some places where there are limitations of a gate or security, there are not. Of those, I would say 60 to 70%, yes, operate during the night as well, right? Moving on to some other questions. What is the current mileage for 100% charge of Tata, Tigor and Nexon? Arun sir, again coming back to you, what's your experience on a 100% charge? What do you get on Nexon in city and highway?
I mean, I think this is about electric cars. Electric cars make you start understanding how to reduce the footprint of consumption of power. So they keep correctly depicting the way you drive and how much mileage it can give from the way you drive. Point number one. To answer flat, Nexon EV gives an ICE-like driving style with a little improvement of using regen better. Nexon EV crosses 200 kilometers on a full charge with 10% to spare. But there are people who have done 300 kilometers, as good as the ARI mileage range. And how did they do? It is because it is so informative. The way you arrange your drive, the way you do your maneuvers or overtaking, it will keep updating you how much power you are consuming. This way, some people have kept on looking at the dashboard and ensuring that they optimally drive and have clocked much higher range as well. Second thing, in an electric vehicle, it is true for an ICE also, but because the petrol tank is so huge, it doesn't matter to you. In Ghat sections, for example, when you are going up the Ghat, there is a higher power consumption. And I have made a quick math and I see that for a 100-meter elevation increase, you are consuming 300 watt-hour of extra current. So if you are going at 2 kilometers, if you are consuming 300 watt-hours of current, if the same 2 kilometers, there is an incline of 100 meters elevation, then you are consuming 300 plus 300, 600 watt-hours of current. So for your calculation of your long trips, you need to know these parameters. What is the elevation gain that will be there from point A to point B? But I want to tell one positive thing also. When you are going down, you are coming down 100 meters of elevation, the car will add 300 watt-hours of current into your charging board, into your battery. So if you're going down with 300 watt-hour of electricity, you can do 4 kilometers, not 2 kilometers. So all this information which is coming live, which will keep you engaged in your journey, and it's so much fun to actually experiment with it as an electric car.
Great, sir. Great. You put it very practically. In fact, some of the facts that you've shared, maybe our engineers also will have to dig out some data and come back on that.
This is because I put them into a data sheet and see how it does.
Great. I'm just taking some selective questions now. Mr. Pradeep Cletus is asking, I would like to know a bit in detail about the material and infrastructure used in Reva Ma'am's Eco House, also on the machine for water production from air humidity. Yes, ma'am.
1 minute. Yeah, so the material used, it's a mud house. So the same mud that was dug, the foundation, when the foundation was dug, the same mud that came from that space, that's the idea of a mud house, that local materials are used, not beyond a certain radius. That's one. The wood that is used is the deal wood that they call, the packaging material wood. So it was recycled for that. Actually, no paints have been used. Some bit in the grill, but otherwise not on the wood. It's just linseed oil treatment. So these kinds of very simple material and simple basic kind. With Mangalore tile roof, which actually helps the air circulation go because there are no fans in the house, but it stays cool thanks to the mud walls and the breathing roof that we have. So that's a big bonus. So that's the material. The air water generator is made by a company called Water Maker, which is Bombay based. Then there are 2-3 other players in the market. One is Vayujal in Chennai, and there's another one in Hyderabad. I forget the name. But we were so happy and lucky to have found these guys who are already experimenting with this, and that's been a great find. You know, it's Water Maker is what it's called. You Google search on air water generators. In India, you'll find 2-3 of these. It gives us around there's a 13-liter tank capacity that it has, and if you keep it on through the day, and depending on the humidity, moisture conditions in the atmosphere, that tank gets filled up in a day. More than that, actually, even if we use it. In coastal regions, it works better, but Bangalore also has a high humidity rate most of the year, so it works well, along with the rainwater that we get directly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, ma'am. I think we have gone almost 45 minutes overboard our allocated time. Some of the other questions, Manish, Jayasuriya, if you can answer them in the box, in the message box itself, or we could probably get back to those people by email, considering not wanting to take more time from everybody, right? If I could have a few summarizing points or words from the panel members on your experience and how do you take this forward? More than happy for this. But thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to have you, to invite you for this and accepting this invitation, because the points and the experience that you come with, I mean, it's really fabulous. Yeah, maybe starting with ma'am again, if you could share your.
I was hoping to go last, but never mind. I would say thanks to you all. It was nice to have, being a part of this like-minded group. I think for me, that's been the high point. Listening to different ways, whether it's in adventure, like, Arun is doing, or the way Sudhakar spoke about at corporate level. I think that's amazing in so many ways. To know that that's happening, feels very good. Thanks for all the participants, who've taken out time to prioritize this over other things, because I think that's the need of the hour. Thanks to Tata for initiating this, and hopefully it goes further to actually at a manufacturing level to find end-to-end solutions. I think is the main thing. Maybe sometimes individuals on their own in their own space are not able to do much, but at manufacturing level, if the end is seen, to its rightful end, I think that will help a lot.
Thank you. Thanks for that, ma'am.
Thanks. Yeah.
Arun sir.
Yes, Sudeep, I thank for having invited me to this forum. I feel part of being with all of you really value enriching for me. I'm happy to know about SAP doing so many initiatives for green mobility and sustainable, sustainability front. I always cherished having bought a Tata car for, what you do for India, for the nation, for the nature that you drive towards. And I would want to emphasize on Anant Narayan sir's point about e-waste management. Electric cars will also be a source of e-waste tomorrow. I'm sure you are already planning, but please, I would request to emphasize on the battery or that disposement technologies that you would want to incorporate, reusability of the components. The technologies will evolve, so they may not be relevant to reuse, but please keep up this momentum. When you make a battery, ensure that you can also renew it. You can buy other batteries and use it straight away, so that e-waste doesn't happen. Rema ma'am, I think we just have to follow you. There is many things to learn. I have seen your other videos. And I was always been following. I was talking to my wife how to go fridgeless, how to go mixie-less.
You went mute. You went mute, sir. You're gone mute suddenly.
Okay. I was just saying there is many things to follow from Reva ma'am. I think having talked to her is very great to have met her in this forum. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And we'll definitely take the feedback, and we're already working on it. It's not that we are not working on the second life. We are already doing that. We are very responsible that way, and we are already on it. Sure. Sudhakar, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep, again being part of this event, and wonderful insights from Arun and Reva ma'am, and a lot of insights from Avinash and Ramesh also, right? Thank you for your wonderful anchoring. I think that you do your job so well.
Thank you. Thank you.
See, this is the first meeting which I have noticed. I think it's almost 2 hours. 1 hour meeting is going to 2 hours, and you have so many people in the meeting. That is one, because of it. So you planned it on weekend. I think people have a free time and they're extending. And more importantly, so many of them, it's very like-minded people staying almost 1 hour. It's not easy, right? First of all, thank you for being in this like-minded group. Right, that's one thing. And second, when it comes to the corporates, see, as an individual, which we can do little, but if you do from the corporate, you can do more. If somebody is doing it more from the society, much more, right? But somehow today's the sustainability is need of the hour, and everybody spoke. What is that we are going to give it to our future generations? Are we enjoying and just leaving this planet as a kind of its junkyard with so much of the e-waste and so much of the other waste, etc. Everything, which is very important. Everybody should act as more, the responsible, whatever be your capacity. And if you think little bit, why can't it possible? You can make it. Today, we took that one step saying that it's why can't we make 100% of our fleet itself is a electric. Then the minute once you make that kind of a mindset, there is a n number of opportunities for you to achieve, right? That is very, very important. Beat it, maybe it's green energy. Somebody has bought in last also, right? The CNG power versus electric vehicle, which one is more important? It shows that the CNG vehicle is much more good if we are going to use thermal power for the charging for the electric cars. And that is where the source, what Reva ma'am said, from where the source is coming. We went into that within SAP also. That's where we said it's today we achieve 90% of our source energy itself is a greenhouse energy, right? Then that is a kind of a input, and that's how you will not harm the environment. It's all it's mindset, and you can see if you can achieve the whatever the kind of can I go in guard section, can I get in between fast charging stations? These are all the myths, as Arun rightly said. If you have a proper planning, I think there are no limitations. Thank you. That's it. I just want to pass on that from my side.
No, great, sir. I think you integrated most of what it was there. It was wonderfully summarized, and I thanks from my heart. I thank all the panel members, Reva ma'am, Arun sir, Sudhakar sir. Wonderful experience, very good words. I hope all of us at some level, our corporates look to imbibe some of these learnings. Thank you so much. Manish, if you can just give these vote of thanks. Manish?
Am I visible and audible, sir?
Audible, not yet visible.
Okay, to come. So first of all, thank you for the audience to stay. We exceeded for close to 1 hour, and we have such a like-minded audience who care about and living sustainability. And it was really an enlightening session for me. And the way we build on the processes around us, way we live, a simple thing, how we can reuse it and make things more viable. This has completely, I have learned a lot of things. And only thing, and while the entire discussion was going on, I was thinking, can I make some changes within my system processes or way I think, way I commute? Maybe for a half a kilometer, I don't need to take out any of my vehicle. I can just walk down and come. A small, simple changes to my system processes can create such a lot of difference. This was few takeaway for me, and I believe there will be many small takeaways which our participants would have got. Thank you, sir, for enriching us.
Thank you. Thank you all. I would say have a nice weekend ahead and Jai Hind.
Thank you. Same to you, Sandeep. And
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Not what? TV